The Stranded J Podcast.
Welcome back to the Stranded J Podcast. I am your host, Stranded J. Summer's upon us, kids, and with that comes movies. And this is going to be one of the bigger summer movie years that we've had, especially for superhero movies. I know we talk about superhero movies on this podcast a lot. I just so happened to start a podcast when we have major superhero movies coming out. So I apologize for that if you're not a superhero fan, but we need to discuss them because I've seen some and there's some coming out we'll talk about. So I thought I'd kick it off with the release of the Thunderbolts. The Thunderbolts released May 2nd, and I went and saw it, I think, opening weekend. I don't know what number within the Marvel franchise this movie is. I'm sure they have numbers still, and you could count them all the way down to where we're at. But I can just say this is the Thunderbolts. So I went with a friend and we saw it opening weekend, and I thought I'd get my thoughts on it because we've been kind of talking about the news of Marvel movies, and we kind of been talking about like where they're going and what direction they're in, and kind of the uncertainties, but also some of the exciting new things coming. And I thought, let's take a look. This movie got a bit of hype by the end of it because I think people were pretty disappointed in Captain America: Brave New World. And when this one was kind of being teased, it seemed like something people were a little more excited for because we live in a world now where everybody likes the darker stuff. And this movie isn't dark. I wouldn't necessarily say that. It's not like the edgy, dark movie that like it's not like Dark Knight or something like that, but it is something that is like the outcasts and the anti-heroes that were once villains kind of coming together to create a team that's going after something because they're the only ones left that can do it. And it's very Suicide Squad in that way. And a lot of people were excited for it for many reasons. It seemed to have a good tone. It seemed like a real movie compared to what we've seen lately, where it's just kind of been going through the Marvel cycle of just kind of stamping them out with directors, but the directors don't really represent the product. It's more the production and the producers and all that. And this one seemed to be different, and people weren't sure, is it something that they're kind of rebranding? This is what I thought. Is it something that they're rebranding a little bit here after Captain America: Brave New World to get people to still see this movie, even though it's going to be similar, right? Like it seemed like for a little bit there that they were just like trying to redirect people through their trailers. They were doing some like A24 style, pushing the A24 stuff where they're like, these are the people who made these movies are now making a Marvel movie and all that. And that kind of came out of nowhere. And they've been kind of talking about this movie for a while, but that was kind of a fresh thing they were doing post Captain America: Brave New World. So we were kind of wondering what's it going to be. I think a lot of people had confidence in it though. Like from what I've seen, like don't think that like it was a lot of like, oh, this looks bad. The trailers looked great. It seemed like an interesting and exciting concept. And I'm here to tell you it was, and it was a lot of fun. It was a probably the most movie-like Marvel movie I've seen in a very long time. And that's including, this surpasses, not in the sense of, like if I had a favorites of the Marvel movies, especially post-Endgame. I don't know where this one would place yet. I haven't seen it enough. But I will say in like post-Endgame Marvel, I say, like even I'm not gonna rank them. I'm not gonna rank like my favorites as of right now. But what I will say is, overall, I think this one is the best made, the best acted, the best shot. Over things like even Spider-Man: No Way Home, Deadpool and Wolverine, those movies that are huge and made $1 billion and more. I think this one was better put together as a film overall. I think it was very beautifully shot. Didn't have a lot of over CG in any of the scenes that just seemed very unfinished or expensive. It didn't seem like they had a lot of, if they had reshoots, it didn't seem like they were pretty stark and obvious where you could see a lot of things just getting kind of placed in post-production. That was all a breath of fresh air for me. I'll say like that was really fun to finally be able to see a Marvel movie and you can watch it from beginning to end and it felt like a cohesive thing. And it felt like not just the acting or the story, cohesive in the sense of just the whole production. Like nothing changed, nothing turned into something for a while and then kind of came back. And it's like, oh, you can tell, like, especially after watching like Daredevil, Born Again, and watching, like I said, Captain America, those movies, you can just tell what parts were filmed a long time ago and what parts were filmed recently and what parts were just tossed in there that they ran out of time to make look nice. And you could just tell they lose their vision a little bit. This one did not do that. This one, it was so fun to just see a movie that was just a movie and that was cohesive. So that, like, overarching, yes, this movie's great. If you haven't seen it, I would say go see it. And we'll delve into it a lot more now. And so spoiler warning. I'm not going to sit and kind of give, like, I kind of gave my opinions just now on the movie without spoiling it. One other thing before spoilers that I would say is, if you're worried that, like, you haven't seen a Marvel movie in a while and you're worried you're not going to be able to kind of keep up with what's going on, maybe a little bit. It's hard to say now that I've seen everything, but like, I think this movie does a good job, and I'll get into it a little bit later, and kind of a bad job at kind of exposition to keep people up to date on what's going on. We'll get into that in the spoilers here, but yeah, that's kind of what I would say for that. So if anybody's kind of worried, like, I'm not going to understand it, you'll still enjoy the movie. It's very comic book in the way that you can go see it. If you haven't seen some of the other stuff that introduced some of these characters, it's exciting to watch them and see which ones you like, and then go, where are they from? Oh, they were in Black Widow. Let me go watch that. Like, that's like the gold, like, that's like the gold mine of a comic book collector and a comic book lover, is we haven't read everything, right? We haven't read, you know, Superman, Action Comics #1 all the way up until now. So like, if you're like jumping in and out, you're never going to be able to find the absolute perfect jumping on point. There's a lot of good ones, but you'll never find a perfect one. There'll always be a character you've never known or seen, or you'll see a character that you've known for so long that's now doing something different. And so you have to kind of understand that. And, you know, so the fun part of that is to jump in and go, ooh, why is this the way it is? Or why is this character here? Or how did they become this? Or are these two together now? And then you can kind of backtrack and find those issues that lead you to get the whole story and kind of catch up and see where you're at. And so that's the fun of it all. And that kind of happens in this movie. All right, getting into spoiler territory, because we have a lot to talk about. And I think that I don't really think I have a huge, like, guys, I have like this whole new unique opinion like everybody else, but I do have a lot to say. And I think I need to get it off my chest, because I think I just need to. So anyways, Thunderbolts. The name Thunderbolts has been used in the comics, but it's also been used, you know, it's a team. It's a team. It's another team. There's been a lot of hints to other things that they have now revealed that we'll get into later too. The Thunderbolts in this is basically Florence Pugh's character's soccer team when she was a kid. That was really bad. They never won anything, but it's kind of the linchpin of the story in a way. Like, it really, the representation of what her soccer team was to her, and what Red Guardian saw in her, like, was very, like, it's an important plot point at the end of the movie, talking about how she wanted to be a goalie because it was kind of her last. She wanted to be the person that if everyone else, you know, failed or struggled, she could be the last line of defense that could still help them reach the goal and win. That's kind of the end discussion of Thunderbolts and things. They did this kind of crazy marketing campaign where they had, you know, like them on a Wheaties box, and the Thunderbolts, they have this asterisk throughout the whole thing. And like they used that in the promos, on the poster, on the title. They used it in the red carpet premiere. You could stand in front of a big asterisk, and no one quite knew what that meant. Everybody kind of wanted to, everyone was like kind of making their own guesses, where they're like, are they just using that as like, this is a asterisk as they're like an asterisk of the Avengers, like where they're not what everyone else is looking for. They're a group that is a hodgepodge of kind of bad people, and they and so like, you're not getting the Avengers, you're getting a team. And that was my impression, at least. I think everybody else kind of had their own and kind of different assumptions. I'll say what that was used for was super, it threw me off completely. I had no idea. So essentially, we'll get into the plot a little bit so I can explain that. So it kind of starts with Yelena Belova. I always can't say her name very well. I'm sorry. Yelena. She is played by Florence Pugh. She's like, some call her the White Widow, things like that. She's Black Widow's sister. You kind of introduced to her in the Black Widow movie. She's struggling because she's like lost purpose. Essentially, she doesn't want to be like a Black Widow anymore. She wants to be more of a leader and be more out in the open and help people outright. She's inspired, I think, a little more by the Avengers and people she's met along the way. She wants to come out of the shadows and just be a actual hero. And so she's dealing with kind of some heavy stuff with that. This movie came at an interesting time too in my life where, I've been dealing with some stuff and, and it's the struggle of life sometimes. This movie is the most successful of the Marvel movies to do some form of alternate villain where the end villain isn't just this big monster like you'll see in Fantastic Four, which I think that's also going to be a twist, but it's not something that is as tangible as just, we got to defeat this guy to save the world. And we'll get to that. These are all people who are very flawed for various different reasons. She essentially is told by Valentina Allegra de Fontaine, who we've seen. I think she was the first time we saw her was the end of WandaVision, but I can't remember. It's been so long. She's been kind of hinting at putting together a team. So all these people in these Marvel movies or in the Marvel TV series that were once villains in some form or fashion, they have run into her now because she wants to kind of scoop them up and make them a part of something she wants. But she's super secretive and hidden and a shark, essentially. And so she has her go. She's, we gotta basically clean house. We got to get rid of. There's a lot of stuff going on. She's like in front of the Senate or something, and she's really like trying to deal with like basically getting busted for all of the shady stuff she's done over the past few years. So she tells Yelena to go to take out a target, essentially. And she goes to take out this target. She goes, it's easy, just wrap it up and you're done. Well, essentially what they run into is that she told all of the people that she's been working with to go take out another person. So this is where you get introduced to the general cast. This is where you get introduced to John Walker, Ava Starr, and Taskmaster. So John Walker, we'll go down the list of them a little bit. John Walker was one of the antagonists of Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And if anybody doesn't know that character, U.S. Agent, John Walker in this universe, and they got him pretty close in this compared to the Marvel comics too. He is basically essentially like kind of gone through trials to be like a pope. We just got a new pope. He kind of got... like he had to go through these trials for the government to basically elect a new Captain America in Chris Evans. I always say the actor's name. It's weird. In Steve Rogers' death. And so he in that show, he's introduced as the new Captain America, John Walker. He's had like 3 Medal of Honors. He's done 1 million tours in Iraq. He's like peak human performance, played by Wyatt Russell, Kurt Russell's son. And he's very good. He's like the perfect person. He's like he has not taken the super soldier serum, but he's a perfect person. And he's like, he represents what they think is like what Captain America represents. So they give him a new suit and the shield. Obviously in that show, Sam and Bucky don't love that. There's a lot of debate in that show on the representation of those characters. And a lot of people don't feel like John Walker was enough of a bad guy. They think a lot of people side with him and think some of the stuff he does was justified. A lot of people obviously don't. They think that Sam and Bucky were a little harsh with him in the series for he may be a bit of a douche a little bit, but he wasn't like a bad guy, and they just weren't warm to him. I think there's a lot you can unpack in that show to kind of justify that, but also I agree to a certain way that I think that he needed a little bit more, and that show wasn't one of the Marvel's strongest, and I think he needed a little more fleshing out to show the corrupted side of him. However, he's not, so essentially in that show, he Bucky and Sam are doing their thing, and he's kind of doing his thing, and he's trying to do what's right for the government. He kind of has his own sidekick and stuff. And he's fighting these super soldiers, and he lets the weight of Captain America kind of fall on him, right? He lets it affect him and stress him out. And by the end of it, he is fighting these other super soldiers, and one of them kills his buddy, his Falcon, essentially. and he kind of crashes out, and he takes the shield and he cuts off a dude's head. He takes the super soldier serum. There's one that the super soldiers left out, and he takes it. So he becomes a super soldier, and he cuts a dude's head off on like TV essentially. And he has to like, he's like dishonorably discharged in a way, if I remember correctly, and kind of loses his mind. I think the super soldier serum kind of, it embellishes the qualities of the strongest qualities of people. So, you know, for Steve, he had a huge heart, and it wasn't even his sense of duty, and it wasn't his, tactful ways of doing things. It was his heart. He didn't like bullies, and he wanted to help people. That's all he cared about. And he had a very pure heart. That's why he also got the hammer at the end of Endgame. And so that just accentuated all of those things of Steve. So Steve is supposed to be that perfect kind of guy in that way. And that's the debate, right? It's like, it's less about like, what have you done in your life? It's more, what do you want to do? And how do you want to live your life? And so Steve, represented really pure things. John Walker, while not a bad guy, he represented a lot of different things, and that's the idea of what does Captain America mean? I'm kind of getting far into this, and we can kind of head back to Thunderbolts, but he's a very complex character, and I actually really enjoy that character. So it was fun to see him again, because we haven't seen him since Falcon and the Winter Soldier like 5 years ago, so now he's kind of a fallen Cap, and he's been working with Valentina. So he shows up trying to kill Yelena, and then Ava Starr. She's from Ant-Man and the Wasp. She's the villain from that, where she's like a ghost. She can like teleport through things. And then Taskmaster, who was in Black Widow. They all kind of were asked to kill the other person, and it was supposed to go down this line. Well, they kind of catch on to that, and they stop fighting, and they're in this room, and they find a guy named Bob who came out of a crate. And they like the next part of this movie, I would say, is probably the weakest for me. Not saying it's bad, but it's just them essentially escaping, and then kind of it's the dynamics of these characters. It's just learning. It's kind of relearning them. My first criticism of the movie is, and I know it's hard because of where we're at with the Marvel Universe and what it takes to get people in the seats and still understand what's going on. But the exposition needed to explain who these people are has to be so forced and obvious. So it's like, John Walker, we know you were Captain America. Well, for a minute, until you cut a dude's head off on live TV. Oh, well, I had to do what I had to do. Oh, well, and it turns into kind of this, like, let's recap everybody's backstory. That always bothers me. But yet again, it bothers me more in movies that have like 1 or 2 sequels to them. This thing is now into like 30 movies at this point. Like, how are we supposed to, and with multiple TV shows that people haven't seen, even I haven't seen all of the TV shows. So it requires a lot of like backtracking and talking about who these people are and where they came from. But it's a little synthetic, and that's hard. But, I would say, this first act going into like the middle of the movie is a little, it's fun, and it's really well done, and there's really good action in this movie too. I think the beginning part with Florence Pugh's character is really fun. I think the action scenes with the characters fighting each other is a lot of fun, but there's just a lot of movement of catching us up on what's going on. The thing that everybody guessed 100% correct is that Taskmaster was going to die within the first like 10 minutes of the movie. That's true. Taskmaster is the Slipknot of the Suicide Squad from the crappy 2016 movie. Like, she appears, and like you could just tell, like, she wasn't as much in the marketing, but she was in the marketing. You could tell she was CG'd into some spots. That's actually the beauty of this movie, is that it's one of the first Marvel movies that doesn't have so much overt CG in it, that when you do throw CG into it for like a trailer, it's pretty obvious. But she dies at the beginning, and that she's kind of the expendable one. A lot of people didn't love that version of Taskmaster. Taskmaster is a villain that is basically can learn the skills of their enemies and kind of reuse them against them. And there's a lot more to that than just that explanation. But she was one of the villains of Black Widow, and I think just underutilized there, and they just never quite found a way to make her work, to make her a bigger deal. Same with like Crossbones. That's why you have Frank Grillo, I think his name is now playing Rick Flag Sr. in DC, because he had a huge arc that could have been in Winter Soldier. He was Rumlow, that turned into Crossbones, who was a cool character, and then he dies right at the beginning of Civil War. Like, they kind of wasted it. And so he went on to DC with James Gunn, but Taskmaster kind of fell for that same unfortunate end. And so you have these few characters. You have Bob, you have U.S. Agent, you have Yelena, and you have who am I thinking of? Ava Starr. And they're escaping this place, and they hate each other, and there's the bickering, and this is where you get a little bit more of the Marvel jokes. Not as many as in most movies, so that's good. But they're escaping, and then it leads to some scenes that are a lot of fun, such as when you have Yelena go and see Alexei, Red Guardian, played by David Harbour. And, if you know the backstory of those characters, which this is probably the part of the movie where I'm like, you may want to watch Black Widow at least before you see this movie, because their dynamic, all is told in that movie, and kind of the pain that they have, and it makes it much more emphasized if you've seen that movie. He's like doing a limo service and kind of just like living the glory days like he's been doing. He hasn't talked to her in a year. She's also still grieving Black Widow, Scarlett Johansson Black Widow. And so she's really struggling. And then with this Bob, they're running around with him, and he just seems like a normal guy, but they keep bumping into him, and he keeps like giving them views of like their worst nightmares or like their worst regrets in life, essentially. So you have Yelena, I think that's where you run into her like kind of early Red Room stuff, some harsh, like she tricks a girl into getting killed for the test. John Walker, you find out, isn't doing as well as he acts. He's so broken from all of the stuff that's happened of him getting basically removed from Captain America that his wife is upset with him. He's ignoring his kid, his baby, his newborn, and it's just him sitting in a chair kind of spacing out about his regrets. They all are just broken people in that way. Then we run into Bucky again, who Bucky is now a senator, which we kind of saw in Captain America, but he's not good at it. Like it's one of those where it's like he got into it for certain reasons. It's kind of crazy, but he's not good at it because he's meant to be out on the field, like helping people in that way. And so he's talking to basically the advisor, Valentina, who is like they have a plan that they're trying to set, and he's trying to convince her to like kind of get some dirt for him because she's not a good person, and this aide to her is young and kind of just trying to be helpful, but she's kind of in over her head with Valentina and what she can do and her secrets. A lot of stuff like that. I'm not gonna like completely and utterly pick apart the movie and like tell you every single scene, because to be honest with you, I got to see it again. But also, I will say it's not one of those that like is boring chuffa. Like it was all stuff that I really enjoyed. I never felt bored in this movie. A lot of people complain about the pacing of it. I would say that overall, I was going to kind of leave it for later, but overall, when it comes to the structure of this movie, this is surprisingly one of those movies that I actually prefer the second half over the first. And that usually is not the case, especially with Marvel movies. You usually are like really like loving where it's going at the beginning, and then it kind of becomes just like bland Marvel land and fight of a boss. You see, and I also see that in DC with like Wonder Woman, but even in like one of the greatest Marvel movies of all time, and to start at Iron Man, I feel like the weakest part of that movie is the very end when you have Obadiah, the Obadiah Stane, go into this massive, bigger Iron Man, and they just fight each other in that way. That was always kind of a struggle in those movies. And this is one that kind of breaks that, which is great. I enjoy the second act or the second half more than I enjoy the first. Because we finally start to get the team together by like the middle of the movie. They've escaped and they're kind of keeping together. You're trying to pick up on who Bob is. And, they like, Lexi joins and he's trying to help them get out. And so they all kind of come together by happenstance. And then Bucky finds out that they're doing these and he's trying to get more information. He actually goes to arrest them, where you get one of these like really viral, cool, Bucky moments where he looks like the Terminator coming in and he kind of cleans house and saves them. But he captures them and says, you guys are causing more problems and I'm trying to do this. And they're like, but no, we have to stop her. She's trying to do this. And he's like, well, I don't believe you. And he gets a call and it kind of convinces him from the aid of Valentina. So he kind begrudgingly joins them as well. And they all have a good dynamic together because a lot of them, some they don't know from other things and others they do. So like obviously Bucky knows John Walker from Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and their relationship gets kind of fleshed out a little bit more. Yelena and Alexei obviously have been together before, but you kind of connect these things that are a lot of fun. So like Alexei, when Bucky comes to like save them, essentially, John Walker's like, Bucky, and he's excited. And then Alexei's like, the Winter Soldier, because he's like super excited because he's like hyped up by him for that. That was like the worst Russian accent ever. But like, he's like super excited. So it's a fun, like, oh, that's cool that these guys have connected. And I never put like 3 and 3 together where it's like, oh, well, they would like, he would know who the Winter Soldier is because they're, there's a whole Russian program and they're both super soldiers. And then they kind of talk about that. And John Walker obviously knows Bucky through what they've been through. And so they don't love each other and they fight and stuff. And it's a good dynamic. It's a good group. They did a good job of picking who would fit really well in this. They have a lot of characters that they could throw into it, and they could, even if they wanted to, make a sequel with a whole new cast of kind of misfits from this universe. But I think they did a good job at getting kind of the general, because I mean, they knew from a long time ago who they wanted in it, because at the end of these series or these movies, that's where Valentina would show up. But I was happy with that. I thought none of them were boring. I would say it was a good call on Taskmaster, because I think I don't think that character is fleshed out enough. I think Ava Starr is another one that's a little weaker. She had a little less to do, but she was a lot of fun to just kind of, when they got stuck in a situation, she literally could unstuck them because she can go through walls. So she needs to be fleshed out more. When it comes to the others, they were really perfect. Like, they actually were a lot of fun. All the acting's great all around in this movie. There's no like kind of weak parts. And this movie also reveals a lot of what we've been building to what's been going on. We've had this complaint for a long time since Endgame. Where's the next Avengers happening? Who's going to be in it? Where are these characters? Where are those characters? How are we going to get this Avengers Doomsday thing with the X-Men? And we don't even know who part of the Avengers are anymore. Do the Avengers exist? They haven't really decided. This all kind of gets answered. At least it takes us into a direction in this movie where, third act, we find out Valentina has been the one who purchased Avengers Tower. We always wondered what happened to Avengers Tower because they moved to like upstate New York after the first Avengers, or in the middle of Age of Ultron. Was it? It was at the end of Age of Ultron. They moved to upstate. They did the upstate thing. And they just sold the building. They didn't know what happened to it. They kind of ignored it. And they had in Spider-Man: Homecoming, they showed Happy kind of moving stuff out of there. And we've wondered ever since, like, what's going on with that. Well, Valentina bought it. I think that's a temporary thing. I think she's literally buying it. So when the Fantastic Four enters this universe, they're going to buy it and it'll become the Baxter Building. But I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. And so with Bob, we run into the fact that he was part. I'm just going to get into it because like it's a whole mystery. It takes a while to get to Bob's stuff, but Bob's great. And he was part of the Sentry program, which they thought kind of all died off in the test. He was kind of he considered himself a loser meth head that had no goals, and he got an offer. So he said, I'm going to go do this. And he kind of blacked out and doesn't remember what happened. And that's where he's able to get these powers, where he's able to kind of see people's biggest regrets and things like that. Well, Valentina finds out that he's still alive, and they kind of capture him through a whole set of hijinks. And she wants to recruit him to become Sentry, and be the perfect hero that will defend. And she wants to be the person that's like a part of all this, right? She wants to be the person that is like the hero for everyone and like puts together the team, and she can secure herself in like a job essentially. And so she kind of convinces him like, you are the Sentry, and like they work together. And the team are going to get Bob because they find out how dangerous all this is, and like Valentina's dangerous, and that they were trying to kill her, or she was trying to kill them. So they go to kind of confront her, and he is now Sentry. And he's kind of confident because he feels like he's found his purpose, and he just kicks all their butts essentially. I mean, he's just like Superman on Superman. The team fights him alone, and he kind of beats them all. And they're all down in the dumps. And then you find out that like he has this thing called the void that he's basically been struggling with, which is like the other part of him. It's depression. It's the fears. It's the things that the other guys have been kind of talking about. that they've seen with him. And it's a crazy end of just like all of these characters kind of by happenstance they're all in New York now, and they like he turns into himself into a void. It's no longer Bob, it's no longer Sentry, it's the void, and it's just him all black, and he is consuming all of New York with people in the void. And that's where you get, while this is happening, kind of the first team up hero moment where they all kind of work together to save civilians, and they find their purpose again. And the only person who tries to go into the void as opposed to run from it is Yelena, who she has a connection with Bob throughout the movie, which is really sweet. She's the one that's like kind of trying to get to know him and understand that life's hard and stuff. And it's a long section of her navigating basically her trauma of different scenarios and scenes that she's had to relive in her mind over and over again. And the only way she can kind of break through them is when she comes to terms with them to a degree. And she finds Bob, and he's kind of hidden and defeated, essentially. He just doesn't know. He's just like, I'm stuck here. This is the one room that isn't as bad. And you get a little more backstory that he had a rough childhood. And the rest of the team eventually gets convinced to go into the void as well, and they catch up with them. And this is like my favorite part of the movie because it's a really unique and cool representation of what they're trying to tell, but it's also it's fun to see these characters and go through these things where Bob has to fight himself to be able to stop the void from happening in New York and save everyone. And the void like kind of captures everyone else, and they're watching while he's like challenging Bob to basically defeat him. And Bob starts fighting him, and they fight and they punch, and you find out it's making it worse because that's not solving his problem. And it's a fun little metaphor of, depression and anxiety, and how fighting it isn't going to solve the problem. Loving yourself and remembering the things that are true to yourself is more important. And Bob is constantly told he's alone, he's a loser, he knows nothing, he's unhelpful, and he kind of lets it consume him, and it takes Yelena to kind of break out and hug him. And a lot of people make fun of this. I don't. I think that's people who make fun of that are extremely shallow people, especially when we have so many superhero movies where we have so many other ways that a movie ends. And she's like basically letting him know you're not alone. And this is where you get the whole team. They all kind of come up and hug him and like tell him he's not alone, and he's able to find that peace that he's not. And it's really sweet because it's these people, for instance, like John Walker calls him Bobby at the beginning. You can tell it bothers him. And over time, Bob earns their trust, and they kind of like him. And so, Bob is fighting himself, the void. And even John Walker's like, come on, man, get up. Like they're encouraging him because they care a little more. And like, you love to see that character development. And so it ends basically with them kind of getting out of the void. Everything's fixed. Bob's lost his memory. And they run into Valentina. They're basically going to beat her up. And kind of she's in trouble because she's caused a lot of chaos. She's the one who created Sentry, who caused this problem in the first place, and she's getting outed. You're like, this is it. She's outed. And she runs through the canvas, and they chase through her, and she has like called a bunch of press, and it's this like kind of bait and switch where she's like, and this is what I've been trying to do all along, and here is the new Avengers. And they play the Avengers music, which is cool, and the team is kind of thrown off guard. Yelena essentially says, we are now fully in control of you now. It was kind of Valentina's last ditch effort to get that power she wanted, but now at what cost? Because she's had to go through so many hoops because of all of her mistakes that now she has no control. And Yelena got what she wanted. She wanted to be more of a bigger figure that isn't in the shadows, that isn't just a hitman. She wanted to help people and be a part of a team, and that's what she got. Basically it ends with that. And so it's the new Avengers. And that's been the big kind of, not controversial, but big thing that happened is after opening weekend, all of the ad campaigns all around the world switched the name from Thunderbolts to New Avengers. So the asterisk was for that. It was, they're not the Thunderbolts, they're the New Avengers, and the asterisk stays. And they use that. And so like there's been a second boost of ad campaign that they've been trying to get, where you see Sebastian Stan, who plays Bucky, he goes on the street and he covers the poster with a new poster that says New Avengers. There's a big painted one that they tore off the top of it, and it said New Avengers instead of Thunderbolts. It's a way for it's a very Marvel thing to do. Some people think it's a cheap way for them to kind of boost their sales. Other people think it's really cool. I'm kind of in between, and I kind of agree with some people where it's like, I wish they would have waited another weekend. I know they're trying to get it like, they're like, this is kind of a reward to the people who saw it first, but it's not a huge spoiler. It's a fun twist though at the end to go, oh, the new Avengers, that's cool. Like they changed it. And most people did not see the movie yet, especially this one, because some people are like, oh, wait, it's, I thought it was going to get a good word of mouth, and I think it will. I think it has. I've been predicting like this is going to be one of those that's kind of a lukewarm start, because a lot of people who aren't, unless you're a huge Marvel fan, are like, I might be able to skip this one. It looks interesting, but maybe I'll see it when it's on Disney Plus too. People tell them, oh, this is one of the best Marvel movies that's been out in a while. And then they'll go see it in theaters. And those people didn't really get to see that twist. They got to just see the new ad campaign as it is, and that probably confused them a little bit, but that's a small nitpick, I would say, just a small one. But yeah, so we have the new Avengers now. We get two post-credit scenes. One of them is just more of a fun gag with Alexi in a supermarket, and then the other one is a huge reveal. Now, the other thing is I saw this on some other podcasts and other people talking about it. The final post-credit scene does kind of spoil you as well at the end of the movie if you're paying attention to the credits. Within the very end of the credits, you normally see all the music and who it was written by and all that. One of the songs on it was the Fantastic Four theme. And my friend and I kind of looked at each other and said, that must be what the post-credit scene's about, because they did not play the Fantastic Four theme anywhere. It had nothing to do with it. And surely enough, it was not a huge deal, but I just thought that was kind of funny, a funny observation. So the final post-credit scene, it takes place, I think they said like 14 months later. So like, where are we going with this? Like, how far into this world are we compared to our own? For the longest time, it was kind of like we're in the same time period as they are, with like varying months. And then it turned into the snap happened for Endgame, and that's 5 years. So then there's a 5-year push forward. And now that's like all over. I don't even know when all these things happened. I think they're still kind of like correlating, but it's just, man, we're pushing far. They have taken the Avengers Tower. They are the new Avengers. They all have new costumes. Bucky looks way more comic book, which I love. And they're all kind of talking about just like, essentially Sam Wilson is upset and he's suing them because I guess there's a trademark on the Avengers name, and Sam has his own Avengers. And that's where we're kind of running into a conflict similar to Civil War, I think, where we're going to have kind of a Cap and Iron Man. It's going to divide the team to bring them together for a bigger threat, which is going to be Doctor Doom and the X-Men or whatever it may be, Secret Wars, all this. So they kind of ask like Bucky, like, well, what about Sam? And he's like, he didn't take, like they're kind of fighting. They're getting sued. They're trying to figure out what they're going to do. Then they get kind of a notification on their computer that there's an anomaly, and they see a spaceship, and it's the Fantastic Four coming into orbit from what we would think is an alternate universe. Which I think I might have talked a little bit about in the last episode, but yeah, I have my theories on that as well. And we'll get to that with Fantastic Four. And so that kind of ended it. So we got a lot of answers, right? We were really not sure what to think in the future, because we've lost so many actors and characters that were important to this universe, and a lot of them have retired. And we're not sure with some part of it. Like, we don't know where Thor is fully. We know what happened at the end of Thor: Love and Thunder, but we don't really know what he's doing right now. The Guardians, we kind of got a better idea of where they are, but I don't think they're going to maybe use them for a little while. You have Sam Wilson, who's got an update, and then you got the Thunderbolts, who all got updates on where they're headed. The Fantastic Four, we don't know yet. The X-Men, we don't know yet. When we don't know who's going to end up staying in this universe. And then, you have kind of everything in between, like Bruce Banner Hulk and Captain Marvel and Miss Marvel and a lot of other characters that's like, who's going to be on this side and who's going to be on that side. It seems like another kind of Civil War situation a little bit, but maybe not as dire. And so I'm interested to see where this goes, but yeah, it gave us a lot of answers. I always wanted to know what happened to Avengers Tower. I think they didn't know what they wanted to do with Avengers Tower for the longest time, so they finally kind of came to that conclusion. And I think they said, this is a perfect way for us to segue. We're going to make them think, oh, well, this is, okay, it's just Valentina's place now, and they're going to make it the Baxter building. I could be wrong, but that's kind of what I'm thinking. And then like, we still have like Deadpool. Wolverine is now in a way in a universe. Loki, he had kind of a conclusion, but he's going to be in the new Avengers. You have not the new Avengers. He's going to be in Avengers Doomsday. We don't know where he's going to be outside of that. Spider-Man, they now have finally announced his new movie, Brand New Day. And, as far as we know, nobody knows who he is anymore. So he's just kind of a street level. They haven't really said if he's going to appear in Avengers Doomsday. I guarantee all these characters will appear in Secret Wars. I think if Secret Wars is going to be kind of the end game where by the end of it, everyone will be there. But I think Infinity War is going to be a little more pointed with, or Infinity War. I think it's going to be a little more pointed like Infinity War, where we saw everybody, but they're going to focus on very specific arcs of certain characters with other characters kind of just appearing and helping. So yeah, that was, I guess, the new Avengers. I mean, now we're wondering, is this the movie title now? Because I think it's a push, but when I guarantee when they release this on like Blu-ray or whatever, they're going to have, the Thunderbolts, and then we pull the slipcover off, it's going to say New Avengers or something like that. But it's kind of both now. It's kind of named both. And so I really enjoyed it, though. I was really happy with it. I'm really glad that we got something a little more, not grounded, but just had a focus. And it wasn't just it did build the universe, and it gave us a lot of answers compared to other things like Brave New World kind of gave us nothing. But it also just felt like just a fun movie. Like it was just a good one-off movie from Marvel, which we haven't seen in a while. And I highly recommend you guys go check it out. If you guys don't go to movies often anymore, this is a good one to go to. If you're wanting to wait for Disney Plus, it'll be a little while, but it'll be one that you're definitely going to want to watch before Fantastic Four, if you're excited for that. Because Fantastic Four, I think, is going to be like a Captain America 1, where it's going to be kind of its own separate thing for most of it, and then it's going to tie into everything at the very end. And then we're going to see a lot of them from there on out. However that story ends, which, like I said, I know my theories. So yeah, let me know what you guys thought in the comments. I was really happy with it. I think it was, like I said, probably it's one of my favorite post-Endgames Marvel movies. It's one that I could definitely see like watching again. I can't say if like I like it more than, like I said, like Spider-Man No Way Home or Deadpool and Wolverine, like what one's more fun or what I enjoy more. But what I will say is that it is better made. They've been saying this is the one that's been kind of course correcting. It's the start of the course correction for them, where they're focusing on quantity over quality, or quality over quantity. And you can see it. So hopefully that's going to continue on with Fantastic Four and everything. I've said this before, we have two franchises now, two superhero franchises that are trying to win their customers back. And so that's a lot of fun to see where it's going to go. We have Superman starting a new universe, and we have the Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four trying to continue an old universe, but keep people invested. And they both have to invest people. So, and it's all happening this summer. So that's why we're going to be talking about it a lot. And these movies are only going to ramp up as we go. And I'm excited. I have been excited for a summer superhero like event of movies in quite a few years, probably pre-COVID. So we've had some good ones there, but this is one where it's like, man, it just feels like there's so much to look forward to all in like a span of a month. So stay tuned with that. Like I said, leave a comment below on what your thoughts were on the Thunderbolts, and we will discuss it more in depth, I'm sure, as we go along this. We'll have to reference it for Fantastic Four. But beyond that, guys, thank you so much. That's going to do it for this episode of the Stranded J podcast. We will see you guys next time. Thanks.